Hey there, welcome to Spice Files. This is the Old School Players Ball 2019 edition. I'm joined again by DFB. How you doing?
Hey, Mike. Doing great.
Good to have you here. We're just gonna. I guess the easy thing to say is Dave and I both checked out the decks from Players Ball. We didn't really specifically look at the ones that were, granted an award for creative at the Players Ball. We just looked at what we thought was most interesting, and then, kind of joined our list together to see what the overlap was, and that's kind of the simple process we went through. So hopefully we get to kind of highlight some of the interesting decks that maybe didn't get a creative prize as well. So I'm kind of excited about that because I think there are definitely some things when I was going through it where I was like, yeah, this is a really cool deck, and there's only so many creative prizes. So I'm kind of excited about that.
Yeah, I'm really excited to dig into all this. Neither of us were at the Players Ball.
Right.
I went last year. It was a great time. You were there last year.
I was, yeah.
And I had nothing but envy and FOMO related to this year's event. Frankly, like pound for pound, this seems like one of the spiciest old school events ever held. I mean, there were so many people just going all out to do really gnarly and fun things. It's I think it's overall it's a real testament to the Chicago crew, to the Lords for the for the culture that they've established there, and just kind of really setting the tone for what old school is about. So really fitting, a really fitting kind of I guess metagame, or just to see all the decks collected together for what's become one of the the marquee events on not only the American old school calendar, but like the worldwide community's calendar.
Yeah.
The only other thing I'd say before we jump in here is just to echo you, like you and I are not, in doing this, highlighting some of these spicy decks, we're not trying to second guess or undercut the actual creative prizes that were given. I think the point of this is more for us as people who weren't there to kind of go through and share some of the things that really jumped out and were exciting to us as we looked at all the decks.
Yeah, definitely.
I know, from my own experience, like it's really hard, during the time that a tournament is unfolding to make those calls about what's spicy and not spicy. You can bring in some of your friends to help judge and that kind of thing. So everyone's going to approach this a different way. But with that said, let's go ahead and celebrate some of this stuff because there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, sure. Well, the first one that we were going to highlight was probably, at least on the day for sure, the talk of the town, so to speak. That was a Dane's Inferno deck, which seemed pretty amazing to me. You said it to me a while ago that in some way you kind of had to be there to experience it, right? But we know at least a little bit about kind of what was going on. It was a very thematic deck. If you look at the picture, there's actually some information about kind of what he did when he was playing his matches, and he was basically rewarding people with cards for certain when he would make certain accomplishments, like his opponents might be able to win cards. So it was a pretty, at least from my perspective, it seemed like a pretty inventive thing to create, just to bring to a tournament. It looks pretty spectacular. The deck photo is spectacular. I think in general, to be clear, I believe all of the creatures that are in like the bottom left of the picture, like the manticore and the dragon and all that stuff, those are part of his deck. So he would play those cards. I think those are pieces of the actual deck, along with the ones up above, but the prizes are the holy,
the infernos and the holy strikes. Yeah.
And then the other ones are just so these little tiny place card things, I don't even know what to call them, I think are just for him to keep track of what he's done so far in the game, because he would give his opponents different cards depending on what he had accomplished as the match went on, right?
It sounds like an amazing experience for both players. A lot of achievements to unlock. A lot happening here with a power surge, candle flare type shell. I mean, I think I agree. Like you kind of did have to be there.
Yeah.
But it's no wonder that this one took the top creativity nod,
Yeah.
just because it really. I mean, I think even without like a kind of like I think it's pejorative to say gimmick deck, but like a stunt or trick deck like this, like an experience based deck. Even without that aspect, old school is always about, for me anyway, it's about two players coming together and creating a good experience for both of them. And this really just kind of kicks up the stakes and makes that experience crafting a lot more fun and interesting and kind of a really unique and very thoughtful thing. It's awesome how much time that he clearly put into this, and it's no wonder that it took the top prize.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the also I'm enjoying just the picture, because all of those little not only is the deck laid out interestingly, and all the stuff is like, I mean, the prize cards like drawn on. He clearly like put time into that, and also the artwork on these little special little cards is actually kind of cool. They're like specifically chosen for what they're supposed to be. It's just, I don't know. I'm appreciating the picture.
You know, I'm no art scholar. Maybe that's some. I'm sure those are some kind of like, I don't know, like Renaissance or something depictions of Dante's Inferno, like the actual like work.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, there's a card in Legends, Underworld Dreams, that literally the art by Julie Barrow depicts Dante and Virgil on the card.
Right. I have heard that. Yeah.
And so that there's a direct tie there to a card that was literally printed in 1994. That's an explicit reference to the Inferno. Very, very cool. I mean, not much more that I can say.
Yeah, and
I'm jealous of the players that got to participate in this. It looks really sweet.
Yeah, and also I feel like we should say again, since we weren't there, we're slightly guessing as to what the exact contents are and how all of it goes, but that's just based off of what at least we know. So, pretty exciting.
Totally.
The next deck was Robert Vincent's mono red. So this is one. I saw the deck picture, and again, I think that's one of the most exciting things as far as old school goes, when you see the kind of, the aftermath of an event, right? As you get to see the deck photos, and not only are the cards beautiful, but I would say maybe over the last year or so, the creativity of how you lay out your cards and create your deck picture has increased.
The photo itself is its own kind of art, for sure.
Right, and so I feel like everyone's trying to kind of keep that going, I guess. And
I think there is a bit of that's kind of its own metagame, right? The one-upsmanship related to deck photos. I'm glad that Robert Vincent had access to a table of this size. That's a really important and underrated element here. And I think, he also must have really specifically measured the table to determine. There's actually a lot of math that would have gone into this layout. I can't even speculate as to how long this took. But we should probably underscore that this is literally every red. It's a singleton deck comprised of every single red card printed in 1993 and 1994, including Fallen Empires, right? And then the sufficient land and some other artifacts to go with that. But the artifacts that he's chosen, at least the ones that we can see, obviously there in the middle, are ones that are directly related to red, right? The coal golem, which makes red mana battery. Gauntlet of Might is obviously, it's like a red card that's an artifact essentially. So everything here is completely on theme. Just amazing decision making.
Yeah, I don't see any other artifacts either, as I'm looking at the picture. So I think they're all in the middle. So it's pretty cool. I love playing singleton, so I'm sure this was actually pretty fun to play. And I feel like
to shuffle.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I feel like there's definitely a lot of just a lot of overlap with the kind of what the cards do in red, right? So I imagine this actually probably played like, all right.
Yeah, that's actually a valid point. I think there's probably more, like if you take the entire color as one for each of the colors in old school, red might have the most kind of intrinsic, like intrinsic symmetry, if that makes sense, because so many of the cards are designed to like burn or destroy things. I mean, the creatures are unfortunately not all amazing. I mean, you're kind of lacking a lot of good like 1 and 2 drop creatures in red, unfortunately. But of course, I mean, there are a lot of really awesome red creatures too, and I'm hoping that he got to stick like a Shivan dragon or a Hydra or I don't know, even like a Yeti or something, Beast of the Garden. I don't know.
Yeah. I see a power surge that's written on like it's in the bottom left. It's written on kind of like Shaman Ben's black cards were from last year from his mono black deck. I wonder if he got that from him at some point. Not from the mono black deck, obviously, but from something else.
Oh yeah, interesting.
So wonder what the story is there.
When I first saw this deck photo, my jaw dropped. I freaked out, and no, I mean, there's not much more I could say. This is fantastic.
Very cool.
Amazing effort. Well done.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so our next deck is by David Lance. This is DJ Cabal. I mean, Cabal Ghoul is an amazingly cool card. I mean, there's a ton of cool stuff to kind of check out in this list. There's like a lot of just nice things that Cabal Ghoul tends to combo with, I think, is sort of what it kind of breaks down to. But
totally. Well, the nice thing about this, before we get into the actual albums depicted on this,
sure.
I think we have to clarify for people who might be scratching their heads about the synergy between the Ghoul and the disc. The wild thing about the way that Cabal Ghoul is templated is that it doesn't have to be on the battlefield at the time when creatures are dying for it to get the counters. If you have a disc in play and you blow up the world, kill a bunch of creatures, you can actually play the Ghoul in your second main, or whenever later in that turn, and then it has an end step trigger that gives it counters that remembers whether or not creatures died, independent of whether the Ghoul was on the battlefield or not. So that's a really, really important thing to understand when you're brewing around the Ghoul. And so that might help explain to people you're not necessarily blowing the disc up with the Ghoul in play.
Right.
Because then you would need to find a way to save or regenerate it somehow.
Right.
The play is to play it afterwards. But man, so many things here to dig into. Obviously, like the basal thralls that can kill themselves to create one of those triggers. Pestilence, again, works with that same end step concept, right? As long as you have the Ghoul by the end of the turn, the Pestilence gets to stick around.
Right.
Man, Living Plains hiding back there. There's so many Living Plane Pestilence, or it's just like fantastic. Or like float a bunch of mana off of your dorks and your thralls, blow up the disc, blow up all the permanents, and have the last permanent standing. Be just a huge Ghoul, right?
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, I mean it's definitely super interesting, and it's a card that doesn't get played enough, probably. I mean, I think it's one downside is that it's an Arabian Nights card, right? So that probably is what maybe prevents it from being played more. But it's and it's I guess it's a 3-mana 1/1, right? If nothing else is going on, so that's a little rough to handle. But if you're building around it, I mean, you can plan on it being significantly better than that, right? It's hard to just slot it into like your, I don't know, average mono black deck, right? Like it's just not going to be doing enough to make it worthwhile, probably. But here it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's a sweet card, and one that we will probably be seeing more of as the months and years roll on here. People are. I know a bunch of guys who have been working on Cabal Ghoul, and there's a lot more than meets the eye. And I think David Lance here, takes it in a really funky and cool and synergistic direction for sure.
Yeah, I also like the sideboard avoid fates, just to if you want to make sure that your ghoul sticks around and finishes the game, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, avoid fate. See it used a lot in like all in berserk decks, and I'm not totally sold on it in those shells. Where you really want avoid fate is in more combo decks where you are you're really like you're trying to protect like a mirror universe or something like there's a permanent that you just really need to survive. But you can protect your huge ghoul with it, and you can also protect your disc and get it to your untap to be able to set it off. So that's another reasonable application for those.
I'm also just noticing the strip mine / what is that card? Is that tunnel?
Oh, burrowing.
Yeah. That's what it's called. Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
So anyway, those are kind of cool.
Yeah, I have to assume he played those as strip mines.
I assume so. Yeah, that's.
I recognize a couple of the logos for the albums. I don't know if you're a music scholar.
No, not really. I'm not sure I'd recognize those. To be honest,
I feel like I'm not cool enough to identify each of them. But I hope he was like, I don't know, singing or rapping or generally kind of making actual musical references during the games themselves.
Yeah, I feel like these are not the only ones I've seen that are like this, and there was a set that somebody else was playing that was all stuff that I recognized because it was like like a Nirvana album and just some other things that when I was a kid that's the stuff that I was listening to. So
yeah, sure.
So but I don't immediately recognize these, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Nevin Nero's compact discs or Nevin Nero's vinyl, I guess. In some cases. Yeah, this is sweet. I love it.
Very cool deck. All right. Next up, we have Bill S's Hurkyl's Recall deck, main deck Hurkyl's. I'm not sure what to call it, but it's definitely a Hurkyl's Recall centric deck, right?
Yeah.
And again, this is like another case of taking a card that does a pretty reasonably cool thing, and that's kind of unique within old school, I would say, and really just trying to build around it as much as you kind of can. And so I think that's largely what we're seeing. It's
there's a lot to unpack here. It's another deck that is fundamentally built around Nevin Nero's disc, I think. And you can of course activate the disc and then Hurkyl's yourself with the disc trigger on the stack to save all of your artifacts. You can play and reuse your like mana vaults and your moxes and soul ring and stuff with the Hurkyl's really easily. You can Hurkyl's your opponent and either time twist or wheel their hand away, or Hurkyl's them right before their upkeep to I guess with the vice trigger on the stack.
Right.
To have them take a whole bunch of damage. This is also, this backs into Mirror Ball. Always love to see, Channel being used in any old school deck. It's it's such an amazing, unique effect and mechanic, and one of the marquee combos in the format, but it's one that's just not really seen that often because you do need a sufficient green mana early on to get it going. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I guess 9 green sources with the Lotus that I can count. So just enough to have a hope of maybe sticking that channel fireball on turn 1 or 2. And otherwise, you can do a lot of different kind of shenanigans with the mirror and or her, channeling out a disc or something.
Sure.
I don't know. There's just like a lot of different little funny corners to this. What is the card under all the scribbling?
I think it's a flash counter.
Flash counter? Yeah. Okay.
Well, one other thing I noticed about this deck is I think it's like as far as the card choices go, I think it's legal in either EC, Atlantic, Pacific. I think it's legal in like all the things other than as far as like B&R list is concerned, maybe not set legality or whatever if you want to go down that route, right? Like what printing you're allowed to play, but like it only has one workshop. It only has one recall. Like there's just things like that going on. So I'm just noticing
there's
that.
Some
that's
compatibility.
Kind of
it plays well with others. I mean, there's so many card requirements that I don't think you could get away with more than one workshop anyway. And I think this is a deck that it could potentially be interested in running more than one recall. All the restricted cards and some interesting things to be able to get back for sure, especially if you're making a ton of mana with the hurdle shenanigans. But works perfectly fine with one, and I don't know. There's a lot to like here. One other thing is like you have the Gentleman's Mind Twist hanging out in the sideboard.
Oh, sure.
And maybe that's the kind of thing where if your opponent pisses you off, you bring it in for the second.
I've heard that's a common strategy.
Yeah, it's a good convention.
If you think your opponent deserves it, then you board that card in. That's the plan?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Good for them.
Yeah.
But just like we saw with the last deck and having the option to bring in Avoid Fate, I think the flash counter also performs that Avoid Fate kind of role, right? Protecting especially your mirror or your discs from instant speed removal.
Yeah, and the better part about flash counter, I suppose, is that you can also protect it while it's on the stack, as opposed to trying to do that you can't do that with Avoid Fate, right? You can't counter the counter spell, so
exactly
seems pretty important.
Cool.
Very cool deck. I like that. Just the Hurkyl's recalls work with more than one thing, and it just it makes like cards like that where they're more situational usually. Like it just makes them better to play in the main deck, right? And
definitely
kind of have that hanging out in your hand, and you're not like, I can't use this right now.
Yep,
it's probably got to use. So very cool. So the next deck is Greg Cryer's. This is a mono red mirror with Ali in the sideboard kind of a thing. Again, a lot of cool stuff going on here. I also feel like we've seen Mirror Universe a lot in these lists that we've looked at so far. Popular card, I suppose. It definitely does it. Again, it's a unique effect. I guess probably in all of Magic, to be honest.
It's Mirror is a game. You don't see them so much. I mean, it is an expensive card, like in terms of dollar value. So people buying into the format are not necessarily going out of their way to pick these up.
Right.
But it is a game warping, showstopper really when. If you're like on an aggressive strategy, you've got your opponent on the ropes, and then one of those things comes down, and you don't have an answer. Like suddenly, you can't attack anymore. Like this is the horrible kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't situation.
Right.
It's really. I mean, to your point, there's nothing else like it in the format or in Magic. This kind of life swapping effect.
Yeah.
And I love what he's doing here. You can get a mirror out pretty quickly with the mana vaults and the flares, and then as you're taking damage from your tapped vaults or whatever, it doesn't really matter, because you've got these mirrors to kind of backstop the race. And otherwise, he's hucking huge fireballs and disintegrates and playing huge dragons. And then I think what really sold this for me was the more, I guess, I don't know if I would call it a fully transformational sideboard, but being able to bring in Ali from Cairo which is a great combo with mirror also. After your opponent doesn't see them or has no idea that this is even in the realm of possibility.
Sure.
Ollie, another kind of like completely game warping effect. That if you're not prepared for, can really just steal a game.
Yeah, definitely.
Just completely changes the dynamic of the way that a game usually plays out, and that a lot of decks are just not built to handle necessarily.
Yeah, definitely. I like org in decks like this just because you have so much burn to just remove the small guys to prevent him from doing his thing.
Yep.
Which is really cool. I'm assuming this this like custom card, it's probably an artist proof. Looks like an Amy Weber artist proof.
It looks like you know what? It might be a Dragon Whelp.
Yeah, I'm assuming that must be what it is, just from the other contents of the deck. But yeah, that's a cool thing to have in there.
Yeah, totally. I mean, he's got a lot of amazing, alters and scribbles and, different little mini things done by the artists. Beautiful collection, obviously. He's clearly, a product of passion for the format and for the cards. The other funny thing here, God, yeah, I love the board. I just love the board. To be able to bring in Ali if you see the opportunity with an opponent that doesn't have a lot of outs. Otherwise, bringing in these 4 freaking bottles, because his main deck is virtually free of Arabian Nights cards. Shatterstorms against plenty of different types of decks, ranging from like the deck to all the workshop stuff that's running around. They're just like a lot of real like haymakers that can come out of the board to really just take advantage of things that he's seeing, or to really throw the opponent a curveball with those ollies.
Yeah, I don't want to gloss over this this one feint in the sideboard. I wonder, trying to figure out what that is doing there.
Oh my God. Other than just being sweet?
I mean, yeah, it is a sweet choice. Yeah, I was just looking to see it combos with org kind of, right? Or no? Does it prevent the damage from both things?
Because org couldn't attack in order to get the feint effect, I don't think. I don't know. Maybe he's just winking.
Oh, no, it prevents all the damage. Yeah, I just was looking it up because I couldn't remember the exact text on it. But yeah, it prevents all the damage that the creature would deal and all the creatures blocking it. So
it's sort of like pulling your creature back with a maze. It's a similar effect, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, maybe if his dragons are running into trouble, it might just be like a wink or something funny to put
it's cool. I mean, it's a neat card. It's definitely one of those. I'm thinking back to the other mono red deck, right? And I'm sure that was in there. And I mean, I'm sure it's useful, right? In the same way that maze is useful, except your opponent doesn't know it's coming, right?
Yep.
It's kind of cool.
Really nice deck, Greg.
Yeah, very cool. All right. So next deck that we have here is Jack Kitchen's Shahrazad Leprechauns thing. The Shahrazads are in the sideboard, but it's like it's your using the combo of Circle of Protection Green and Alien Leprechaun and some Force of Natures and that sort of thing, which is pretty cool. And then it's got Shahrazads in the sideboard. So.
I love this little deck. I mean, Leprechaun Ward is obviously a relatively known commodity, I guess, in old school. But I just love the way that this is done. It uses all of the it's got a couple of the laces, it's got the wards, it's got the cop greens. I love the synergy between cop green and Force of Nature, of course. I love the all the different kind of combat shenanigans that you can play with the Leprechaun, turning stuff green. You have other ways of making your the laces, obviously, to make your opponent's stuff green. outside of the leprechauns. I don't know this. I'm sure this deck actually won a fair number of games.
Yeah, sure.
Just the if-biffs and the Urnums, on curve by themselves are pretty powerful.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, when did he board in the Shahrazads?
Yeah, sure.
did he always bring them in for game 2? Just to start this, I guess, Inception levels of Leprechaun madness.
Yeah, that seems pretty funny, actually.
The rest of the sideboard is hilarious, obviously. In case your opponent does agree to play for ante, you can bring in Contract from Below.
Nice.
It's there if you need it.
Yeah.
Man, Darkheart, Wrath of God. Man, this thing is insane.
Yeah. There's a lot of neat choices going on. Well, one thing that I mean, this is kind of just a general comment about this type of deck, but one thing that I always appreciate about it is that you're whenever you think about circle protections and wanting to play the main deck, I feel like the first thought is usually using Slight, right? And trying to change the color. And this is going the other direction, and you're just trying to make sure that you always have a use for the cop the way it's written, right? Rather than trying to like form that to some special need. Like you no matter what have a need for it in your deck already, right? Just by playing the things that are going to damage you and that sort of thing, and then you're just making them a little bit better. So totally. It's a more interesting way to build that type of deck rather than trying to just throw slights, I think, into there and there's more interesting options to pick from and things.
I totally agree. Now, man. So I found one more thing to talk about here.
Okay.
Bottle of Suleiman.
Sure.
And Life Lace.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, you can prevent the damage that the bottle does to you. With your cop green if you make the bottle green.
Nice.
I mean, it just writes itself, Mike.
Yeah, I can tell. Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
This is marvelous. I'm sure he had a lot of fun with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Very cool. All right. Our next deck is Joey Gonzalez's Sorrow's Path deck. This thing is pretty awesome. I feel like there is a very cool space in old school with things like Gauntlet of Chaos or Juxtapose, where you are trying to give your opponent stuff that they don't want to have. And that's a challenge on its own because you, of course, have to be playing those cards and you probably don't really want to have them either. So, it's a little bit of a trick, right? But this is kind of cool. Basically, you're on a mana short Psychic Venom type of list right here but with Sorrow's Path, and you can donate them to your opponent and continue tapping them to not only deal damage to your opponent, but it also deals 2 damage to each of their creatures whenever you do it, right? So, but I'm sure it was definitely a challenge to get those things on your opponent's side of the board. But that's it's definitely, it seems pretty exciting. So,
man, when that can come together, if you can get the Sorrow's Path to your opponent's side, and pop a Psychic Venom on it, and then like mana short them in their upkeep, tap it, nuke. It does damage to their creatures, right?
Yeah, it does 2 damage to them, and then 2 to each creature.
Nuke their creatures. I mean, good lord.
Yeah.
And then untap their Sorrow's Path with your Candelabra and do it again. With your Icy Manipulator. I mean, this is exactly where you want to be. I love the main deck Meek Stones. Great combo there with the Ices.
Also makes Twiddle a little bit better too.
You've got Tron lands, and I'm wondering. Let's see. I guess you don't have. Yeah, I guess Tron makes some sense. Tron is a better combo with the candle, I think, than just having workshops.
Yeah, sure.
Man, Oh wow, there are floods too. I completely missed those. Yeah,
Oh, and the board there. Yeah.
floods out of the board. Sure. I mean that's very synergistic, right? With
Hmm.
the theme of tapping stuff, keeping stuff tapped down.
Yeah.
Um, God, this must have played really. And then like a low key kind of twiddle vault package in
Hmm.
here too. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
this must have been a blast. And this is the kind of like achievement unlocked deck where if you
Hmm.
get if you play 8 rounds of the player's ball and you can get your deck to do the thing like once or twice, you are leaving that room like the happiest person
Hmm.
alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, hats off, Joy. This is
Yeah.
we had a great time.
Yeah. Very, very cool. Yeah, I think the only last thing I did want to sort of uh, point out here is just I don't know how I don't know. For some reason, I like to focus on like the kind of the aspect of the exchanging cards and that sort of thing. And
Mm-hmm.
um, I, I I haven't gone too far with Gauntlets of Chaos, I guess. And this is really making me want to try to sort out what other interesting things like this you can do with that card. I mean, I've thought probably more about Juxtapose, I suppose.
Yep.
Um, than I have about gauntlets. But gauntlets is definitely really cool. And on top of not only giving, so if you're in the scenario where you can give them a Sorrow's Path, you're also getting a land, right? So you're actually bumping yourself up.
Yeah,
And
it's a ramp effect in a way.
yeah, and it's like a stone rain, right? Because you give them a land that doesn't tap for mana.
Yeah, totally.
So it's just sort of interesting. It's definitely a very cool thing to be exchanging with Gauntlet. So, but yeah, I'm now trying to think about other things that go along with that. But anyhow, it's very cool, very very cool. Um,
All right.
okay, next deck is Andy Baccaro's. This is it's playing. Wait, which Sphinx is this? This is Petra Sphinx, right?
Yes, the Petra Sphinx.
Yeah, yeah.
A 6 mana 3/5 creature
Yeah.
with magnificent wings, but cannot fly.
But cannot fly. What I kind of immediately think about with this deck is the sort of relationship I guess it has with doing the Sinbad Sylvan combo.
Yes.
Except that it's probably a little bit better with things like, well, specifically with Drop of Honey, for example, right? Like you can't realistically play a Drop of Honey if you're playing Sinbad, right? You're just going to kill your own Sinbad immediately. So this at least gives you a little bit more of a way to have that kind of work. But yeah, it's definitely maybe a more resilient card than Sinbad, right?
I mean, this thing is spectacular. First of all, it's a love letter to Sylvan Library. I think. I mean, it really tries to push all the like a lot of different possible synergies with Sylvan. Right? You have shuffle effects like land tax, Untamed Wilds, natural selection. You have the Sylvan or the Sphinx combo, which for it basically boils down to after you you fix that what the top card of your deck is because you have your Sylvans. Sphinx is literally then just reads tap to draw a card.
Right.
You just have to do the work of remembering what you left on top of your deck, essentially.
Exactly.
So it's basically like a JMD tome on a stick, or better in fact because you're not paying mana to activate the ability. What I love about that too is that you have Maze of Ith. At least one. I mean, this was before the unrestriction of Maze in EC rules, which happened just very recently. With a couple mazes here, you can more reliably attack with the Sphinx. To use that big body, post damage, maze it back.
Yeah.
and then be able to use the card draw ability on top of that.
Yeah.
Which is quite something. You have let's see what else is going on here. The Personal Incarnation is just a house, and is there? Well, he's not gaining life, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, he has one Ivory Tower, so he could potentially, but.
Okay. So there's one Ivory Tower main deck, and there's one. It looks like there's one more on the board at least.
Yeah.
Because and it's kind of nice that he didn't push the tax tower direction too hard, because that could really evolve into kind of a deck where you're sitting around and not really doing a whole lot. This is a lot more active. Well, most of the active time is probably spent shuffling.
Yeah.
And finding interesting things with Sylvan every single turn.
Yeah. I mean, it really is a Sylvan library deck. If you really break it down, right? Because like a ton of the cards here just work really, really well with Sylvan. So I feel like the place that you often see Petra Sphinx is in, like the Millstone. I'm picturing
Field of Dreams.
Yeah, Field of Dreams. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so that's where you often see it, but usually not in like great numbers. You see like one or something, and because it obviously works with that. But like Sylvan's just clearly a better enchantment than Field of Dreams. Probably by quite a wide margin. So having it in here and kind of building a little bit more around that seems actually pretty exciting to me. So
yeah,
very cool.
Completely. I also kind of like where Wrath of God is here on the curve in a way. He's actually usually casting it before casting a creature.
True.
Cool. Yeah, and the maze again. Yeah, I think this is an archetype that probably loves the maze on restriction in EC rules. I didn't lean as hard into Sylvan Library as Andy did, but I did build something like this a while back with more with 4 main deck mazes, which means Wrath of God, which means stuff like Jade Statue.
Sure, that's cool.
But yeah, the Sylvan Sphinx Untamed Wild combo. The nice thing about Untamed Wilds here too, and Lentax as well, is that it lets you grab your planes to be able to freaking cast the triple whites. Yeah, the Sphinx and the Personal Ink, right? And that's actually not a small thing, because otherwise without those, you're having to run like 16 or more white sources in your deck, 16, 17, something like that. But if you have those ways to fetch up your planes, it becomes much more of a playable possibility. I guess it's easier to do.
Yeah, I also kind of like how so we often talk about in old school that you can build these decks that are sort of like 2-4 mana cost decks, right? Because you're like maybe playing Felwar Stone, so you're going from the 2 spot to the 4 spot. So here is like a 3-5 thing because of Untamed Wilds into Petra Sphinx and Sarah Angel, which is kind of cool. So it definitely lets you streamline playing that type of card, right? And getting that Sphinx out.
Absolutely. I think that's a really, really great observation. But yeah, with the Untamed Wilds and the Preachers on 3. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, you've definitely still got 4 mana cards, right? Because you're still playing Wrath of God, but there aren't that many. I think it's just the 2 Wraths, right? And a Living Plane.
Living Plane, yeah. Oh God, that would be sick too.
That's actually something I feel like we don't see that often. Usually the Living Plane decks are green red or whatever, but Living Plane Wrath of God is actually pretty funny.
Yeah, no, sure. It's a total board wipe basically.
Yeah. That's pretty excellent. I also feel like there's I don't know what to say about this, but there are 2 Copperheads staring at us over here.
I mean, no further comment is needed.
Yeah, indeed.
I mean, yeah, Andy is one of the preeminent spicers on the East Coast. I'm really glad that he was able to make the trip out to Chicago and represent.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right.
All right. Our very last deck here is Chris Pepin's. What was he calling this thing? Juxtapose.
Oh, I think Juxtapose is just the generic name for the.
Fair enough.
Well, it just says, and Jaco might have written this in Juxtapose, Primordial Ooze combo.
Gotcha. I like the other name better.
Yeah, Juxtapose just kind of rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember in the past, you and I were talking about some Primordial Ooze related things.
Yeah.
And it's definitely.
I'm still in the kitchen on that one. It's a tough nut to crack.
Yeah. I mean, Chris Pepin did pretty good, right? Did he? I forget what place he was in.
He came in 11th, literally 11th place.
11th place, yeah, out of 103 people.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
he did. I think he went X and must have gone X and 2 with it.
yeah. I
Like,
mean, it seems like a good
holy
deck,
cow!
right?
Holy cow!
Yeah.
I mean, God, this is wonderful.
Mhm.
First of all, I mean, I think it's a Diamond Valley deck. I would say.
Yeah.
With the ruck eggs and just being able to, when your ooze gets out of control,
Mhm.
either you ship it to your opponent with Juxtapose, or you just sacrifice it to Diamond Valley and gain the life, or
Mhm.
you can also mitigate the ooze damage with the Spirit Link,
Yeah.
which I think is so he has like three really pretty powerful ways of managing this creature that can get out of control pretty fast, but it's just a super unique,
Mhm.
unique type of effect and a bargain to cast at only one red mana.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess depending on depending on the board state, right? So like in some cases, I'm sure, I don't know. I wonder like how often you're just realistically casting that on turn one or something, right? You're not just jamming it out there. You're maybe being a little bit more strategic about when you play it.
Agree.
Yeah. Um, this also, I feel like maybe this is something specific that we mentioned. And again, there's two cop reds staring at us, sticking out of
I guess I
right
just
there.
don't know.
Actually, those are cop reds 3 through 4 poking out from the bottom.
I just don't know what that could mean.
But I mean, they go well with the oozes, right?
Very, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can just let them do their thing and sit there and tick up, and it's fine. And then you draw the juxtapose later, and then you can ship it over to them. Right?
How it's always good when I have to look a card up. Does it tap itself when it?
Yeah. If you don't pay the mana, then it taps itself and then deals you damage.
Okay. Well,
Unfortunately.
then you're basically just hoping to grow a bomb that you can contain with your cop red that you can eventually ship over to your opponent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hopefully they've played a creature or two.
Yeah.
Does he have a Nalathni dragon in his deck down underneath the City of Brass?
No, I think that's or isn't that a Shivan?
I think that's a Nalathni dragon. It says 2 red, doesn't it?
I don't know. Yeah, I can't see the picture quite clearly enough. I feel like it's just a Shivan.
Hang on.
But you could be right, yeah. That would be great. I mean, that's...
Oh, yeah, you might. Yeah, I think you're right. Is that where... I'm just like looking at the wing. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I can see what you mean. I'm remembering the artwork for...
No, I think it is a Shivan. I think you're right. All right. We'll cut that part
out. In all the extensive editing I will do.
Yeah, right. And he's got at least one Serendib hiding back there.
Yeah, I think it's as well. I think it's just the one.
Which is a nice combo with the Spirit Link. As well.
Yeah.
It
seems like a reasonable deck. Yeah.
It is. It's like for something that is quite spicy. I mean, I think Juxtapose and Primordial Ooze, it's I guess a known interaction. I know they covered it on Flipping Orbs a while back, but no one has taken it this far. No one has done put up this kind of result with it.
Yeah.
For my money, a deck like this placing where it did is essentially winning. It's sort of like last year, right? With Elliot's double top 8 creative and an actual finish. Mm-hmm. For me, this is that deck this year.
Sure.
Just combining spice and winning winning matches with it. It really just seems like it all came together for Chris.
Yeah.
Just really, really excited when I saw this. Just couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it's definitely really cool. This is I feel like I'm like echoing myself a little bit, but I really enjoy it. Not only looking at and kind of thinking about how these types of decks work, but also when I want to build something similar, like my thought process is usually around like trying to make it so that the the individual cards are, they're definitely not commonly played, but within the deck itself, there's like more than one route for them being useful, right?
Yes,
Which I think is really critical. You'll often see, some like, spicy decks, quote unquote, and it's hard to like kind of wrap your head around, or like, because you're a lot of the times the cards are just kind of thrown in because they're just I just wanted to throw them in there. But
Right.
for me, it's definitely a much more interesting puzzle when you've got the this deck that you've created. Like there's a lot of like pieces that work together, and
Yeah,
it
where there's
seems really thought out, right?
kind of more modular or interlocking synergies than just like linear combo type things. It can do a lot of different interesting things rather than just kind of piling all on one result that you're hoping for every time. I mean, and those can be fun too, right? But but no, there's a lot of joy, like the Sylvan Library Petra Sphinx deck. So many of those things just kind of interact so well,
right?
That the whole thing hangs together and ends up being way more than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
And in a really limited card pool like 93, 94, it's just super rewarding to even now, in the year of our Lord 2019,
right.
to be doing some pretty novel things, and just making people excited, which is frankly what all this is about, is just kind of crafting good experiences with your opponent and celebrating these cards that we all love so much.
Yeah. And I guess another way of kind of phrasing what I was thinking is really building around synergy, which I think a lot of people don't really tend to do very much in old school, which is unfortunate because there's just a lot of cool stuff. And there's a ton of these old cards work in the strangest ways, and so there's just so much cool stuff to do. So checking out these decks and highlighting what all these guys did is a great time. I've enjoyed going through all these pictures. It's pretty awesome.
Me too. I mean, so hats off to the Brewers, hats off to the Lords, organizing what looked like just a stellar, world class event for the community. And like we said at the top, I mean, there are so many other really spicy and cool things. Like you and I both had a list, like, I don't know, 20 something decks long, that we could easily go on for another couple hours about things that excite us coming out of the Players Ball. So if we didn't mention you, it's not a snub. We were really, chances are we were really excited about what you were doing also, but we were trying to keep this to about an hour. So
I mean, I'll also make sure, if you want to check out other decks that, that were creative and cool from the Players Ball, I'll put the link in the notes of the video. It was super cool.
Great.
It's happy to chat with you about them, Dave. And
always a pleasure. Let's do it again in a couple of weeks. How about that?
Yeah, that sounds great. All right.
All right. Take care.
See you. Take care.